The fires hadn't yet died in King's Landing when Bronn rode through its blood-slicked streets. Smoke hung low like a dying ghost, curling through the bones of the city that once sang for kings and queens. Now it screamed, quietly, hopelessly. The Golden Company followed him like a golden shadow, their armor gleaming under the sooty sky, their silence colder than the corpses they stepped over. Bronn of the Blackwater, once a common mercenary, then knight, now something far more dangerous, kept his grip tight on the reins as they reached the gates of the Red Keep. The doors were shattered, its lion banners torn, burned at the edges, like parchment too close to the candle flame. No Lannister guards remained, not since the Golden Company, under Bronn's silver tongue and heavier coin, had turned their backs on Queen Cersei. It all started with an offer. That's how everything starts in Westeros: coin, promise, and betrayal. Bronn had always taken the high bidder's side, and when Cersei gave him Highgarden in words but no deeds, and Daenerys Targaryen came burning with dragons and righteousness, Bronn made a choice. But he didn't choose Daenerys either. No, Bronn chose something else entirely. Himself. The Golden Company was tired of oaths broken by lords who died screaming, tired of queens who burned cities to make a point. What they wanted was leadership, gold, a man they could trust to think like them. So Bronn promised gold, not promises of gold, actual gold. The Lannisters' vaults were open now. He'd raided them himself. Cersei had hoarded, and Bronn was the rat who found the cheese after the lions choked on their pride. He dismounted slowly. The clink of his boots against marble echoed too loudly. Not a soul greeted him at the steps of the Iron Throne. Not Jaime, not Tyrion, not Cersei, not even a servant. He remembered Cersei's face, bloody, trapped under rubble. They said she died with Jaime, and Bronn believed it. She had ruled with cruelty and died with desperation. Not that Bronn mourned. He'd seen better queens and worse mothers. A few soldiers knelt as he walked past. Some didn't look up. Others spat on the floor after he passed. No one liked a sellsword on the throne, but Bronn wasn't here to be liked. He was here because nobody else had the balls or the gall to claim what was left. Inside the throne room, the Iron Throne stood crooked. One side had melted in dragonfire. It looked like a beast half dead, its blades twisted, blackened. No one had dared sit on it since Daenerys had vanished or died, depending on who you asked. Bronn walked toward it slowly, eyes never leaving the metal monster. "This is a bloody joke," he muttered, pausing at the base. "A chair made of swords. For fools who thought they'd live forever." He reached out and touched it, cold, sharp, real. Behind him, footsteps. He turned, hand on his dagger, but it was just Strickland, well, what was left of him. Grey and tired, the Golden Company commander looked like a man who'd lived 3 wars too long. "It's yours then?" Strickland asked, voice low. Bronn gave a half-smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "Aye, why not? No Targaryens left, no Lannisters. Starks are too far north to care, and the people, they'll bend. They always do." Strickland didn't argue, he simply nodded. "We'll hold the gates. For now." He left Bronn standing there, alone as all kings truly are, whether born or bought. Bronn sat. It wasn't majestic, it hurt. The twisted metal dug into his back. He winced and let out a bitter laugh. "So this is power," he whispered, "and it's uncomfortable as hell." Outside, the bells tolled once more, but not for surrender. They tolled because no one knew what else to do. The city had no queen, no king, no gods, only a sellsword with gold in his pocket and blood on his boots. But Bronn didn't care about history books. He had the throne, and he wasn't planning to give it up. Word spread fast in Westeros, faster than ravens, faster than truth. By the second night after Bronn sat the throne, small folk whispered, "It in markets and brothels. A sellsword rules the city. Not a king, not a lord. Just Bronn of the Blackwater, the man who laughed louder than he bowed and drank more than he prayed." There was no coronation, no ceremony, no lordly gathering. Bronn didn't care for gold circlets or blessings from the High Septon. Hell, he hadn't even shaved. He sat the Iron Throne in dirty armor, boots still crusted with blood, eating an apple like he owned the world. And maybe for now he did. But King's Landing didn't kneel out of love. It kneeled because the Golden Company had taken the gates, the gold, and the guards. They dragged the corpses of loyalists through the streets, strung traitors from city walls, and melted resistance with fear, not fire. At the Red Keep, Bronn had turned Cersei's chambers into his own drinking den. Who needed a war council when he had jugs of Dornish red and maps he barely read? "You know what's funny?" he said to a young scribe named Perrin, who trembled every time Bronn looked at him. "All them lords, them high-born shits, always said I'd die with a blade in my gut. But here I am, and they're ash." Perrin nodded, quill shaking. "Yes, Your Grace." "Don't call me that," Bronn snapped. "Makes it sound like I've got manners. I'm not a Your Grace. I'm Bronn, that's it." "Yes, Sir Bronn. Better." Perrin kept writing, mostly scared of what might happen if he stopped. He wasn't a fighter. He was a survivor, just like Bronn. But where Bronn had steel and guts, Perrin had ink and silence. Down in the streets, the city was boiling. The Golden Company, though loyal for now, weren't gentle. They took food from starving stalls, slapped women who looked twice, and turned taverns into bloodied barracks. Bronn didn't stop them, not yet. He knew what they were, cutthroats in gold, same as him, just more organized. But inside his chambers, he started to feel something else, a pressure, low and slow, like a blade pressed to the back of the neck. Power. It didn't come with peace. It came with whispers, betrayal, and eyes that watched even when no one was around. Tyrion would have known what to do, he thought one night, staring out over the scorched rooftops. The little lion might have been half a man, but he had a full mind. Bronn missed him in a way he couldn't admit, not to anyone else, not even himself. He drank. That night, Strickland entered with a grim look. "What?" Bronn grunted, wiping wine from his lip. "The north is moving," Strickland said. "Lady Sansa sent a raven. Says she does not recognize your rule. They're mustering banners." Bronn rolled his eyes. "Of course they are. They always do. What about the Vale? The Reach?" "No word yet. The Vale is quiet. The Reach? Well, it's still a mess after Daenerys. No true ruler yet. And Dorne? I don't care about Dorne. Let them roast in their sand." Strickland hesitated. "You need alliances." "No," Bronn muttered, rising from his seat. "I need loyalty and fear. The people follow gold. The soldiers follow gold. And I've got both. For now." Strickland said nothing, but his eyes said everything. Gold didn't last forever, and neither did fear. Later that week, a riot broke out in Flea Bottom. The Golden Company put it down fast, but too fast. Women were burned, children hacked, and for the first time, Bronn heard his name screamed. Not with aught, but with hate. They called him the Beggar King, the sellsword tyrant, the man with no claim, no crown, just blood and stolen coin. Bronn didn't flinch. He'd been called worse. But that night, as the city smoldered again and rats gnawed at the edges of peace, he sat on the Iron Throne alone and muttered to the empty room, "I took it. I got it. And now it's eating me alive." The raven came just before dawn. Bronn wasn't even awake when the guards brought the sealed letter to his table. He'd passed out drunk on a Lannister carpet, sword still at his hip, surrounded by empty jugs and dried blood from a skirmish in the throne room days earlier. A petty lord had called him a low-born joke, and Bronn had laughed while slicing his throat in front of a dozen horrified nobles. Now the nobles were quiet. Now the throne room echoed only with silence and the occasional flutter of wings. The letter bore the sigil of House Stark, a grey direwolf on white, clean, cold, and to the point. Bronn ripped it open with a dagger, still half asleep. "To the one who dares sit upon the Iron Throne, you are not king, you are not chosen. You rule by blood, not right, and the North does not kneel to murderers in stolen crowns. Step down or we come. Sansa Stark, Lady of Winterfell." Bronn let the paper fall. "Snooty bitch," he muttered, grabbing a goblet and tossing it aside when he found it empty. "Didn't even call me by name." He kicked over a table, sending dishes crashing. A few courtiers waiting in the wings flinched but said nothing. Fear had replaced conversation in the Red Keep. By midday, he summoned his war council. Not that it was much of a council. Strickland, 2 old hedge knights, and Maelia, a former scribe who now doubled as an advisor. Not one of them noble, just warm bodies with opinions and loose tongues. "They'll come down the King's Road with banners and pride," Strickland said, spreading the crude map. 20,000, maybe more. Northmen fight cold, they don't break easy. "I remember," Bronn muttered. "Fought enough of them back when Robb Stark was turning grown men into corpses with a smile." "We can't beat them in open field," Mylea added. "Not without dragons or allies. We could try to treat—" Bronn slammed his fist down. Hard. "No more talk of treating. I'm done bending knees to people who think they piss cleaner than me." Mylea blinked but didn't argue, not out loud. "They'll sack the city," said one of the knights. "If they come, they'll come to burn it all down again." Bronn looked out the window toward the north. Somewhere out there, Sansa. Stark sat in a cold hall, writing letters with the same ease he used to swing a sword. He hated people like that, people who thought power was just paper and names. "Then we make them bleed for every stone of it," he said finally. "I'll not run. This city's mine. They want it. Let them come take it." And take it. They would try. By the next week, the first scouts reported banners near Harrenhal, direwolves, falcons of the Vale too. Little Lord Arryn had finally grown a spine, or been pushed into war by northern steel. Bronn ordered the gates fortified, catapults mounted along the city walls, and half the Golden Company to hold the outer perimeter. He paid double rations, even let them loot again, just enough to keep them violent. But still, the walls whispered. People feared the wolves more than the lionless king. In the lower streets, protests turned into fires. Graffiti appeared in blood. "The throne is not yours." A baker was hanged for handing out wolf-shaped loaves. A boy was stabbed for shouting, "Winter is coming." Bronn walked through the carnage one afternoon, cloak flapping, jaw clenched. "These people don't know what they want," he muttered. "They want peace," Mylea said quietly beside him. Bronn snorted. "Peace? There's no such thing. Not here. Not in this bloody city. Peace is just the pause between knives." That night he stood in the throne room again. The Iron Throne loomed in shadows. He didn't sit. Instead, he looked at it long and hard, and for the first time he wondered if maybe it wasn't a throne at all. Maybe it was a curse. Bronn had always known betrayal didn't come with a scream. It came softly, like breath on your neck, like the whisper of a blade sliding from its sheath. And in King's Landing, betrayal was as common as rats in the cellar. He'd seen it in brothels and battlefields, in lordly halls and prison cells. It was just a matter of when, and the when had finally come. 3 days after the Stark banners reached the outskirts of the Stormlands, one of Bronn's officers, a man named Darren Wythe, was found dead, poisoned, no wounds, just blood from the mouth and a wine cup untouched except for a single sip. Darren was no hero, but he was loyal. Bronn had made him commander of the Eastern Gate. That gate was now vulnerable. Bronn kicked over the body in the war tent. "Find out who poured that drink," he barked, "and if they're still breathing, don't waste time with questions." Strickland nodded and left without a word. He didn't need to be told twice. Not anymore. Everyone in the Red Keep had learned. Bronn ruled through quick decisions and quicker blades. But even quick blades couldn't stop whispers. Rumors flew faster than ravens. Some said Bronn was planning to burn the city like Daenerys had. Others claimed he'd secretly struck a deal with the Vale to turn coat when the North arrived. Some fools believed he wasn't even human, but a cursed creature, sitting on a cursed throne. And yet Bronn did nothing to stop the rumors. Let them. Talk. Talk was cheap, steel was final. Still, the unease clawed at him. That night he woke with a dagger an inch from his throat. The room was dark, but the figure looming above him was lit by moonlight. Slim, silent, and fast. Not a knight. Not a brute. An assassin. Skilled and careful. But Bronn wasn't drunk tonight. He grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisted, and threw him off the bed. The man crashed into a table, spilling coins and goblets. Bronn rolled, grabbed his knife, and lunged. By the time guards burst in, it was over. The assassin lay on the floor, throat opened wide, blood soaked into the stone. His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, lips parted like he had one more thing to say but didn't make it. Bronn stood shirtless, breathing hard, knife still dripping. "Search him," he ordered. They did. No sigils, no coins, just a note, tucked in his boot. 4 words written in a tight hand: "The North remembers soon." Bronn read it twice, then he burned it in the hearth. By morning, the Red Keep was locked down. No one left without a check. Food was tasted before it reached the table. His wine came straight from sealed barrels opened by trusted men. Even his whores were inspected, faces he'd known for years now treated like spies. The Golden Company grew restless. This wasn't what they'd signed up for. They wanted war. A loot and glory, not to guard a city trapped in paranoia. Strickland finally spoke it aloud. "They're watching you, Bronn, even your own men. You're a sellsword who took a throne, no name, no birthright. They're waiting for you to slip." Bronn stared at him. "Let them wait. I've slipped more times than I've stood, and I'm still breathing." Strickland gave him a look that felt like goodbye, but he didn't leave. Not yet. That night, Bronn climbed the steps to the Iron Throne alone. He sat again, feeling the cold of the melted swords bite into his back, and for the first time since claiming it, he felt heavy, not tired, weighed down. The throne didn't feel like victory anymore. It felt like punishment. The doors creaked open. Maelia entered, cautious. "News from the north," she said. "Sansa has allied with the Riverlands. Tully men are riding south, and there's more." Bronn waited. She looked him in the eye. "Tyrion Lannister is alive, and he's with them." Something twisted inside Bronn's chest. Not fear. Not rage, regret. Because if Tyrion was alive and he was coming, then the game was far from over, and this time Bronn wasn't sure he'd win. Tyrion Lannister had always walked like he belonged in places that hated him. Courtrooms, war councils, prisons. He carried himself like he'd read every word written about the world and didn't give a damn about a single one. He still did. When he reached the gates of King's Landing under a white banner, the people didn't cheer. They watched, silent. Some remembered him as the hand who defended them during Stannis' siege. Others remembered him as the demon monkey who killed his own father and vanished into smoke and rumors. Now he was back, with wolves, falcons, and fire at his back. And one thing on his mind: Bronn. The gates opened slowly, not out of welcome, out of caution. Bronn wasn't stupid. He could have had Tyrion shot full of arrows, dragged in chains, or sliced open in front of the mob. But he didn't. He wanted to look his old friend in the eye. In the throne room it was silent when Tyrion entered. The Iron Throne stood like a wound behind Bronn. Smoke from torches curled upward, dancing in the high ceilings like spirits. Bronn didn't rise. He sat, legs apart, crownless, sword in reach, watching Tyrion like a man watches a snake he used to trust. "You've got nerve," Bronn said finally. Tyrion stopped halfway up the hall. "I've always had that. What I don't have is patience. So let's skip the dancing." Bronn smirked, but his eyes were cold. "You're not Hand anymore. You're not anything." "I'm alive," Tyrion replied, "which is more than I can say for most of the bastards you've bled dry." The tension thickened. Guards fingered hilts. Maelia stood in the corner, her mouth tight. Even Strickland watched like something was about to snap. "You came here to talk?" Bronn asked. "No," Tyrion said softly. "I came to give you a chance." Bronn raised a brow. "A chance to what? Die slower?" "A chance to leave." "Alive." Tyrion stepped closer now, unafraid. "This city is breaking. Your men are only loyal to coin. Your walls won't hold when winter reaches the gates. The wolves are here, Bronn. They're done waiting. But Sansa, she's willing to give you a way out. Walk away. Give up the throne. No more blood." Bronn laughed, not loud, bitter. "I sat through wars, dragons, mad queens, and burning children. I killed to keep this throne. I killed to take it. And now you're asking me to just walk away like a bloody guest overstaying his welcome?" "Yes," Tyrion said, "because if you don't, the city burns again. You burn with it. And whatever shred of friendship we once had." Bronn stood now. He didn't shout. Just walked slowly down the steps toward Tyrion. The room watched, breathless. "You were the only Lannister I ever liked," he said. "You paid me fair, treated me decent, and I would have killed for you. Did, actually." He paused. "But don't mistake that for love. You think you're..." Better than me, you always did. Tyrion's face didn't change. No, I think I was lucky to be born into a name and you weren't, and I know that luck doesn't last forever. Bronn stopped an arm's length away. You think I don't see what this is? He whispered. You're here to end me without swinging a sword. I'm here to stop a war. No, Bronn said. You're here to remind me I'll never belong in this chair, no matter how many bodies I pile under it. Tyrion didn't answer. Bronn turned away. Tell Sansa. She can come get it herself. Tyrion walked out in silence. The doors shut behind him like judgment. That night, the wolves howled outside the walls, and inside, Bronn drank alone again. The Iron Throne behind him, the weight of every choice pressing harder on his chest. He remembered Tyrion's face, the sadness in it. It was the face of someone who had seen too many kings and knew none of them lasted. The first arrow struck before sunrise. It whistled through the pale light of morning, arcing over the city wall and landing in the chest of a Golden Company sentry. He dropped without a sound, slumping forward with wide, wet eyes. A moment later the bells rang, not the slow, mournful kind that tolled for the dead, but the frantic clang of war. The North had arrived. Bronn stood on the high balcony of Maegor's holdfast, watching the valley below the city gates fill, with armored shapes, wolves, falcons, banners of grey and blue snapping in the cold wind. Snow fell lightly, already dusting the cracked cobblestones like ash. From this distance the soldiers looked like a wave crashing slowly forward, steady and wide, ready to swallow the city whole. Maellia stood behind him, stiff in her heavy cloak. They've come in force, she said. No shit, Bronn muttered. Looks like half the bloody realm out there. You could still parley. I did parley. Sent a man with a flag yesterday. They sent back his head. Maellia didn't argue. What was there to say? War had arrived, and all that remained was to bleed for it. Down at the walls the Golden Company scrambled to prepare. Oil was heated, arrows distributed. Ballistas creaked into position atop towers. But discipline was cracking. Bronn could feel it. The fear wasn't just in the commoners anymore, it was in the soldiers' eyes. The Golden Company had fought in Essos, yes. But this was different. This was home, and home wasn't worth dying for if it wasn't even yours. By midday the siege began. Stark archers rained death upon the battlements. Ladders and rams rolled forward under thick shields. The defenders responded with fire, stone and steel, but the tide was relentless. Every man killed was replaced by two more. The howls of direwolves echoed beneath the walls, not just from men but from the beasts themselves. Rumors flew that ghost Jon Snow's White Wolf had returned. Whether true or not, Bronn didn't care. Let them believe in monsters. In the Red Keep, panic gripped the court. Nobles begged for mercy. Some even tried to flee in secret. Bronn had 3 of them hanged from the walls. Traitors, cowards, fools. Still the city turned restless. Food was scarce, water tainted. The small folk looked at the gates like they were coffins. And inside the throne room, Bronn sat once more, sword across his lap, crownless still, breathing hard. Strickland entered, soaked in blood. We lost the south gate, he said. Bronn didn't flinch. We hold the keep. We fight until they choke on their own damn courage. Strickland hesitated. Some of the men, they want to surrender. Bronn looked up cold. Then bury them in the walls. Strickland left without another word. Loyalty could only stretch so far. That night the storm came, not of weather, but steel. A breach near the Sept of Baelor opened, and Northmen poured through. Fighting reached the city streets. The Golden Company tried to hold, but for every alley they held, another fell. Fire caught in the slums. Screams filled the air, echoing off stone like ghosts from Daenerys's purge. History was bleeding again. Bronn fought in the streets himself, blades slick, armor dented. He killed a dozen that night, maybe more. He didn't count, he didn't care, only survival mattered now. Back in the Red Keep, Maellia packed scrolls, fast and quiet. She turned to Bronn as he staggered in, blood on his face, dragging a wounded leg. We need to go, she said. No, Bronn growled. This is my city. It was never yours, she whispered. That cut deeper than any blade. As dawn broke on the second day of siege, the enemy reached the Red Keep. Bronn stood, in the throne room again, alone but defiant. Snow fell through the broken ceiling. The Iron Throne looked more rusted now, more cursed than ever. For a moment he just stared at it. He didn't sit. The great doors creaked open. A lone figure entered. Tyrion. He walked slowly, calmly, cloak soaked with snow, face lined with grief. "It's over, Bronn." Bronn gripped his sword. "Not yet. You're outnumbered, outmatched, outlived." They stood in silence. Finally, Bronn let the blade fall to the floor. The clang echoed. Like thunder,